Wait for it. Wait for it. Oh, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, first, I want a public service announcement. So since Nick is traveling for the what is it you do again? You know, you wrangle aliens or something?
Yeah, from the
Whoa.
boat.
Yeah. So because they have him wrestling ET on the moon base, he is not in the same room with Stabby, so he does not have to worry about getting cut today. So he can speak his mind freely.
Nah, I'll have like cut demerits, and then when I get home, I got to cash him in, and she's just going to stab me multiple.
My cousin's just down the road.
Oh, she's going to call an audible with her family. Okay.
Oh, crap.
The first time we met her, James, we had talked longer than we thought we would, so he let the Italian food she made go cold, and she was with a knife, and she was just threatening to gut him. It was bad.
Back. That's a terrible thing to do.
You're not supposed to be on her side.
No, I'm definitely on her side.
Jeez,
37
James.
stitches later, I got to find meal out of it. I think it'll.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
All right.
Homemade Sicilian meatballs.
Oh my goodness. It gets even worse.
Is a Sicilian meatball different than any other kind of meatball?
Oh, of course.
Yes.
What are you, crazy?
Apparently. All right. So
you effing stupid.
so James, for people who don't know who you are, can you introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers?
I'll keep it shorter than an hour and a half, okay? So
we appreciate that.
I started work at TSR in 1974. Gary gave me a lot of good jobs. I've done Deities and Demigods and Gods, Demigods, and Heroes. I did the first science fiction role-playing game in Metamorphosis Alpha and the first apocalyptic game in Gamma World. And I've been writing ever since. And now JR has foolishly offered to be my partner in a couple novels that we're putting together. And that's me.
Should be fun. Everyone that's heard the premise liked it. So we are on book 2 in 2 different series because, you know, who can commit to just one?
Yeah, exactly.
Outstanding. Next, last but well, wait, no. Next, we've got Jana S. Brown, who sometimes moonlights as her other personality, Jenna Ray.
It's true. I'm multiple personality, and so am I. Got to have them both in there. Jana S. Brown or Jenna Ray. Jenna Ray is my pen name for all things science fiction, fantasy, urban fantasy, and that go bump in the night. I am a independent publisher with the 17 books out. My 17th book went out today.
Well done.
It's my birthday, and I put out a book. Yay!
Woo, happy birthday!
And I'm just happy to be here. We're talking about one of my favorite subjects.
Outstanding. Next, we have Mr. Paul Sparks, who just went uber nerd before the show started. So we had to give him a sedative, calm him down a little bit. But he's here. He's ready.
Begin with that. He sees a Thorazine. He should be all right.
Yeah. He's not drilling on himself.
Yeah, I had to take a B-52.
All right, so introduce yourself.
I'm Paul Sparks. I'm a new author. I've got a few short stories out in a few different anthologies set in William Allen Webb's The Last Brigade universe. Standing Fast, Standing Defiant, and Standing Free are the 3 anthologies. I'm currently working on various projects right now, and I just keep flipping between whatever the muse starts talking to me. So I've got like 3 or 4 started but unfinished projects going on right now.
Outstanding. So next we have the lovely Miss Terry K. Job.
Hi.
Spirit Fingers.
Oh, always. I danced for 15 years when I was a kid. It's kind of automatic. Yeah, I'm Terry K. Job. I am the audiobook narrator for JF Posthumous with the Lady of Death series through 3 Ravens Publishing. We've got a couple books in the editing phase there as well as an anthology. So you'll see me in print in the future.
Ooh, Spirit Fingers again. Yeah, there we go. All right, so as a narrator and a writer, do you narrate your own books?
I'm going to.
Ooh.
As soon as they get edited.
So that means at least you know everything's pronounced correctly.
Yes.
Hopefully.
In theory.
Reading is so fun.
I believe it.
All right. So the next part of this introduction is how we first met them. So the first time I met James, ironically, he killed me. And everyone else I met through Three Ravens. James says he doesn't kill players, players kill players, but I'm pretty sure he was the one rolling the dice. I'm just saying.
No. I definitely think that players kill players.
I mean, so I charged off on my own. Who would have happened to anybody?
Did you irritate? Oh, there you go. She's back again. Good. You were missed.
Sorry, there's a bunch of kids outside, and I just had to go and scare them by setting off my car alarm.
Nice.
I'm here for it.
All right. And since we're going to have James on for an episode that's going to air before this, he gets the pass on the religion question this time, and we're going to dive right in. It was actually James that inspired this episode, because one of the series him and I are working on as a palate cleanser involves King Arthur themes. So if you read the title of the episode, King Arthur, Excalibur, and Knights Sitting in Circles, you kind of figured out what we're here to talk about. So we're going to start with what everyone's first memory of King Arthur was, where you guys heard it first. Anybody can jump in at any time. And wait for it. James, how did you first find King Arthur?
Okay. It was in Mr. Weiner's English class in my senior year of high school, and he had us read the main King Arthur legend. And I remember I almost cried when Guinevere did her thing with Lancelot.
Ho.
Yeah,
Gwen has problems.
Yeah, loyalty was not her strong suit.
Definitely was not.
I don't know why they added that in. That I don't know. It's just we might circle back to that. So, Jana, how did you first find your favorite topic, King Arthur?
Okay, so my very first was Disney's Sword in the Stone. So that came out in '63, and I think I saw it in about '80 when I was only just 4 or 5, just a tiny little sprog, and it was the Merlin, the higgledy-piggledy, and that stuck with me first, which led to stories later. And then my next one was Mark Twain, Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court.
good book.
And then it all went from there. So I've read Lamort, and I've read lots and lots of other things since that point. It's such a great story.
Okay. What about you, Terry?
I actually have to agree with the Sword in the Stone movie. Solid movie. Love it. My mother also happened to love the book, The Once and Future King.
Mm-hmm.
So I forget how old I was, but we went to a local production of Camelot one time, and I loved listening to that soundtrack with the original Broadway cast. Just a very good production, and just reading various things here and there that just add into that.
Okay. What about you, Paul? How did you discover Camelot and King Arthur? Paul, you got to unmute.
He's excited.
Sorry. First was Sword in the Stone, and then the best movie ever about King Arthur, Monty Python and the whole Quest for the Holy Grail.
Oh my God!
All right, Stabby, you were getting all excited, so you get to answer this question too.
Okay, so my first time ever learning about King Arthur, and everybody's gonna make fun of me for this, I was actually at Disneyland.
Okay.
I got in line to try to pull the sword out of the stone, not having any clue what the story was behind it, and a cast member sat there and explained the whole story to me, and I just kind of fell in love with it after that. But I mean, you can't go wrong with Monty Python. The coconut killed me.
You can.
All right. What about you, Nick?
The first memory that comes to mind was I was probably around 7 or 8. I was really into knights and horses and chivalry and that type of stuff.
As you do.
I don't know what got me into that, but what solidified my love for King Arthur, the fact that I created a whole comic book universe around him, was the movie Excalibur.
Okay. Good movie.
It was shot, the way it was, everything was so shiny and it felt fantasy the way it was filmed. And then the musical score was, oh my God. First time I remember getting goosebumps. Dun-dun-dun-dun, and he's bringing out the mist with the dragon. Just holy crap. It's inspiring. Like it was on my workout playlist for a while. Like the whole score. Dun, dun, and I'm doing deadlifts, so that's what got me hooked. And then I read Lamont Day Arthur. I think that's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
So I read that. That solidified it. That's where I fell in love with my main man, Percival. I thought he was cool, and I thought he went through the most shit. He's like the Job figure from the Bible, but in like the Arthurian legend, I was just like, man, this guy went through some crap, dude.
So I think
the balls on this kid.
I didn't watch a lot of TV growing up. Just I would rather be outside playing in the dirt than sitting in front of a box with lights. So for me, it was Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court, but it was the Reader's Digest version. Because I was my sisters were in Girl Scouts, and so the tag along, I was bored, so they were constantly shoving like Reader's Digest. That's how I fell in love with short content, and so I read the short.
Got hooked on the Three Musketeers was the Reader's Digest version.
Yeah,
that's another show.
And so that's where I found Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court, and then there were then we watched Sword in the Stone at some point, but yeah, there's a lot of Arthurian themes throughout. A lot of fantasy stuff in general. If I remember correctly, wasn't D&D originally based on taking miniature wargaming, James, and incorporating like King Arthur stuff?
That's exactly right. Dave Arneson had Gary Gygax up to his house, and Dave decided that it'd be a good idea if every one of the players had a single knight, and he gave them what the knight wanted to do. And that inspired the 3 pages that turned into the 3 D&D booklets.
Was there any whiskey involved, James?
I'm positive there was. He was a Scotch drinker.
I call that the Hemingway approach to creativity.
I mean, James is a good boy. He was just drinking water, of course.
Yeah, I don't do liquor actually.
So,
foggy enough as it is without added things.
He was having a nice tea.
Yeah.
It's just not from Long Island. So yeah, for me, it was definitely that. There were a lot of themes to speak to a young boy in the King Arthur story. Loyalty, honor, duty, like all the sort of grand themes you want a young man to learn. So it's definitely, and it gives us reason to swing sticks at each other,
Which is always good.
Always good.
Well, and when it comes to Excalibur, I mean, you saw Helen Miriam's boobs for the first time. So
yeah.
Oh, I forgot that was in that movie. You're right.
Yeah.
That's when my mother turned that movie off and went, "This was not what I thought it was. Thanks."
My mom tried
Mothers
to reach
do that to us,
to
don't they?
cover my eyes, totally missed it. I saw 2 glorious boobs.
So it was King Arthur was actually the inspiration for. So I was invited to write for a anthology in the After universe, which is an RPG. The RPG funded on Kickstarter, I guess, but they ended up not reaching write the short story. I was new enough. I didn't know that you don't write it before they get funded for that part. So I wrote the story and had nothing to do with it. And they graciously allowed me to publish it in their universe as is. So it's in my Monster Within anthology. But the editor said it was King Arthur meets Columbine. This is a description of my story.
Ooh, that's
Not the
interesting.
things you want.
Right. Shut up and take your money already. I know. So yeah, I the Pendragon family has just always fascinated me. And it has everything. It's like a telenovela all wrapped up into one. It's got love, betrayal, fight for honor. So
And there's also a very big pagan aspect into it that later came in from it due to Morgana and Merlin and Beltane and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
okay. So as we talk about this, there is some speculation that King Arthur is either he's just completely made up and he's just a stand-in for morality they want to teach, or others will say, well, it was based on this person or that. Do you guys have any opinions on whether it's based on a real person or just
There is good historical evidence that it was a real person, and they called him Arthur because the rank in Latin for captain was Arturius.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I'm pretty positive he was a Roman legionnaire.
Yeah, and a badass one from what the historians say.
And the Romans were dealing with the warlords in Wales at that time, the ones that had the warlord mounts, and lots of stuff was going on there anyway. And so to bring a Roman centurion into the Welsh warlords and mound lords that were going on, that fusion makes a whole lot of sense for where this started. Keep going, Nick. I interrupted. I didn't mean to.
Hey, jump on my tail, coach, because we're going places, everybody.
The Welsh people are the
that historical figure was known for merging with the pagan tribes, the Celts, the Welsh, a couple other ones. Married I don't know if it was a Celt or a Welsh woman.
It goes back and forth, but it's supposed to be a Welsh woman. The folks in Wales were fierce guys, and they were the only places that they stood up to the Romans when they first came through. There's some the Cornavies and some of those kinds of things. The Romans showed up and other people were saying, okay, yeah, Rome's okay. And they're like, hell no, out, get rid of them, goodbye. And so they got burnt out, and there's lots of history there. And there's the Druidic that was following. A lot of that plays into your Merlin legends and that kind of thing, because he was supposed to have had a Druidic advisor, which became Merlin in subsequent stories. So that there's really, really solid ground for a historical figure that we've kind of lost to time, because Americans were a lot of us, if we're from the US, we think 200 years is a long time, and folks from Europe think that 200 miles is a long ways, and so we don't really have a good grasp of how long this has been and how easy it is to start losing the details to history. But there's really strong evidence that he was there, time in Wales, Cornwall, and then kind of moved throughout the Isles during that time. And then that's when most of the myths sprang from.
I really like the idea of a Roman longsword being Excalibur instead of like a medieval longsword.
I guess the first, I did some research, and it looks like the first reference to Arthur was in like a Historia Britonum written by a Welsh monk in like 830 AD.
Yeah, they think it was probably 5th, 6th century, something like that. And then you get the monks in about 800, and then it kind of explodes from there. Because it was such good story that everybody told it and everybody bumped it up. It's why the knights went from, in some versions, there's 12, and they're very obviously making a Christianity thing for Christ and the 12 apostles. Yes. And other versions give you up to 150 active knights of the Round Table. So you can see the mythologies start playing in and out, depending on the audience they're playing into, depending on what's going on historically at the time. Those stories were used for lots and lots of different things beyond entertainment. He was a political figure very, very often.
Wasn't he Charlotte? I think Charles came after him. I know it was Arthur, and then Charlotte, or was it Charlemagne?
You mean Charlemagne, the French?
Yeah, Charlemagne was over on the continent.
Yeah, I don't. Never mind.
He did have paladins, though. You're right about that.
But it looks like Geoffrey of Monmouth is when it really started to get big.
Yeah, I got too much history in my brain. I'm running out of hard drives. Someone else carry on, man.
So the
of death here in my brain.
The funny thing is a little bit of podcast lore for you, Nick. The only person that didn't start sending their hate mail to Stabby was this Welsh guy who sent me hate mail for saying I don't think Welsh is a real language. They just make that up to confuse the non-locals, and then they go back to speaking normal. Oh, yeah, they just go back to speaking normal when we're not there.
I served with
but it was in Welsh, so I had to translate it. But I'm still not convinced it's a real language. So.
It's not on Google Translate, therefore not real language.
Right. So it is interesting how much, how different the legend of King Arthur is when you start peeling back the layers. Like Merlin was added later, Morgana was added later. Some of the iconic knights that we think of weren't in the original telling. So I do find it fascinating how every generation sort of wants to claim part of that lore for themselves and add on top of it. I don't know when the Sword in the Stone became the thing, because at one point in time it was the Lady in the Lake that gave you the blade.
That's how it started. The stone is after Arthur's father, real father, Uther, jammed it into the stone. That's the legend. So that's how you get from the lake to the stone, and eventually back to the lake.
And you get the jokes about, a lady with a sword in the water is not a good
That's
way to
not a
determine the
proper way to
government.
establish a form of government.
Help, help, I'm being repressed. That's the power of the people. Help, help, I'm being repressed.
So I take it, James, you are not a fan of the Monty Python version.
Heavens no.
Oh, sacrilege, sir.
They're going for too many jokes, and the ending, come on.
Thank you.
Jeez. I couldn't believe
It's
it.
a cult classic.
They ran out of money and they did the ending that way. So that was
Well, that's why they couldn't get horses. That's why they had to do the coconuts, because
the coconuts. Yeah, it was. I didn't like it at all. I actually left the theater not even halfway through.
Oh, that hurts my heart, sir.
Well,
So
Yeah.
So
That
was it
happened with
because
us
someone
as-
told you your father
Go
was?
ahead,
Was that because someone told you your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries? Is that what this is?
oh, it was the bridge fight with the poor knight that lost his arms and legs and still wanted to battle.
Merely a flesh wound.
Yes, but it became so many iconic one-liners were stolen from that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
but
isn't that like every D&D player ever? I've still got a hit point. As long as I've got a hit point, I can keep fighting. And you're looking at it going, theoretically, with one hit point, you don't have much left to be swinging a two-handed claymore. And
You
yet,
wound my heart. You wound my heart, young lady.
but it's true. One hit
It's
point
true.
is what?
I've got one hit point left. I can still fight. But you got so many negatives. I don't care. I've got one hit point.
You speak with good self.
I got one hit point left. I want that XP.
Well, luckily for everybody that's interested, we will be doing a panel. James is going to wrangle some of his old school TSR days compatriots, and we'll talk about the origins of D&D and some of the way it's evolved over time. But we're not here just to talk about that. We are specifically King Arthur. So at what point in time did we get Lancelot and Guinevere becoming a storyline? Was that part of the original? I don't actually know that.
No, that was actually brought by, it was the start of what's called, I think it's medieval romance or something like that.
Yeah, the French.
Le Morte d'Arthur.
Yeah, it's in the Mort, and that's, I think, where it was really popularized.
Yeah, about 4th century English romance. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight.
I know Lancelot was added in the 12th century with the Holy Grail when they were
pretty sure it was a French romance.
Yes.
I think he was played by Liam Neeson.
And Robert Gere at one point.
He's not good looking enough to play Lancelot.
Okay.
Oh, that was an unknown actor that didn't do anything else after.
So, do you think that there's any value of telling stories back to the roots, or do you like the extra add-ons that people associate it with, like the Merlin, the Morgana, the Guinevere, and the well, Lancelot was 12th century, so it's been around for a while. But
well, that's what folklore is, man. It's adding on through the generations. It's before we started writing crap down, it was all tales around the campfire. Tales of epic battles and epic heroes and thwarting evil and that kind of stuff.
That's how the gods and goddesses. That's how the gods and goddesses were created from the Greek, the Romans, and all that stuff. It's just folklore.
And as the years progress, the more people tell it, everyone's going to throw their little spin on there.
Well, plus the whole adultery thing and the love story. It's just so romantic and heartbreaking that I think it adds, tons of coolness to the legend.
You know what it told me? The lesson I learned, and as much as I've read the books and seen the movies and all that stuff, when I became an adolescent going into a teenager into a young adult, it was like chicks will ruin an empire.
Pretty much.
I think Mordred ruined the empire. I don't think the chick did it.
Well, she didn't help.
She didn't help.
I don't
The
know.
And
heart
Morgana
wants
had a
what the
bit
heart
of playing
wants.
it.
In exile, and
I mean, that doesn't say much for the institution of marriage then, if the heart wants what the
you
heart
broke
wants.
up your
That's
ties of
just the way
line.
things are.
But remember, that was also a very political situation. And so, depending on how you read the references, the union between Arthur and Guinevere had a very, very political bent to it.
Yes.
She was a lady. There was land that was up for stake, all that kind of thing. And again, you have to think historically of that time, the way that women were treated as far as marriage went. Marriage was an entirely different thing than romance. And we like to read that romance into there and say this was the first great love triangle, la 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 la. But we don't think about what the politics were. We have no idea if she actually really loved him or if this was the political side. And Lancelot was the person that she fell in love with. Now, does that make it right? There's all sorts of arguments you can put there. But we do have to look at the lens through which these initial stories were crafted. And they were looking at what is chivalry and what is wrong and right. And are you allowed to love truly outside of a marital bond when so many marriages were based on politics?
Well, at that time, I mean, a woman of noble birth and an aspiring noble man who wants to increase his wealth, you do that through land. It's the one thing they're not making anymore, So yeah, it totally makes sense on a political aspect. And I think a lot of people get it wrong and they call Guinevere a whore and Lancelot a backstabbing best friend, but it was absolutely a political marriage. It expanded Arthur's lands and therefore gave him more power. More people wanted to come to him where he could build his empire. So,
and he was a lot older than she was too. If you start piecing things together, it and that was also very, very common.
yeah, she was like
Older
a
man and a
teenager,
young.
right?
Yeah, she was like a teenager. She was 16, 17, and he
well in his
was.
20s.
Yeah, well, I think he was probably early 30s in some of the best references that I've read.
Yeah.
So there was a jump, and it's why I like First Night with Sean Connery for that, because they did show that he was much older and she was just a girl, and Lancelot was kind of in that in-between age. Now, that was not the best Arthurian anything, except it had Sean Connery in it playing Arthur, and he will always get he's my Bond, he's my Arthur, he's my Sean Connery's my man. So, but you could see where some of that comes in because there were age differences, there were political differences, there was a lot going on that got stirred up into this particular romance.
Actually, it's still a thing in Britain. All the British men like to marry younger British women. It's been a thing since King Arthur. Oh,
An American man, I did the same thing.
oh, there we go. Well done.
It's
Ooh la
okay.
la.
Stabby.
Funny, which is funny because Jana called me the cradle rubber today, and I was like, "Yeah, no, you got that backwards."
I knew it was
Are you guys
backwards, but it was much
the
funnier
gray in the
that way.
beard? The gray in the beard not coming out on video.
No, you're good. Your die is still holding strong, sir.
My wisdom
So
whispers.
we're gonna pause for a moment and we're gonna shamelessly show for the man. And today, this episode, the man is James M. Ward, who is sponsoring us with his Wolfoid collection, which is a collection of short stories. So, James, sell us on this collection.
Oh, okay. So for the last 40 years, ridiculous people have been asking me to write short stories on their stuff. And so I found myself, when I was talking to JR about other things, with a great big collection of short stories that I'd written. And I talked to him about maybe somewhere I could market them. And good old JR come through again and helped me to get it published. And basically, it's from novels and short stories that I've written over 40 years. And it's a nice big book. You can get it on Amazon and Bookapee. And I'm really proud of it because I'm getting a lot of good reports from people who love it a lot. So, and that's not just people I give it to.
They like it when they pay for it too.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
So it is. It was published by Bayonet Books, but it was mostly because James didn't want to do the formatting the book and all that. So we tasked that out to my mother. We're like, hey, I'll feed you tonight if you do this for him.
There we go. Yeah, I have no computer skills at all. My computer is so old, it types in pencil.
Quill and pen, quill and ink.
There we go.
He's not joking. When I write with him, I have to convert back and forth from Word 97.
Oh, the
Seems like a
DOC.
good idea to me.
It worked. He said if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Exactly.
Baroque.
So-
if it
Nobody
isn't
tell him
Baroque.
about DOS.
Oh yeah, no, don't.
Right.
I'm my computer already is like, are you kidding, bro? Every time I got to convert back and forth. So we've talked about sort of the history from a historical character perspective and the evolution of King Arthur as like the story evolved. And I do think this would be fun to revisit when we get maybe some actual historians to balance it out. But do you guys have a favorite depiction in film, movie, game, whatever, of the
I
King
already did
Arthur
mine.
story?
Obviously,
Really?
I do.
I like the movie that they made where they actually had him as the Roman legionnaire. That came out. Oh, when did the movie King Arthur come out?
Oh, it's early
Clive
2000s,
Owen
wasn't it?
and
It was
Keira
right
Knightley.
after that.
04, I think.
That's
Yeah, it's
because the act. No, that's not him. Who was I thinking of?
yeah, it's Clive Owen, Keira Knightley, and Stephen Delany. Yeah, 04.
No.
Yeah, somebody. I don't know who he is, but I knew who Keira Knightley was, and that was a reason to watch it. But yeah, that was my favorite, mostly because it leaned into the history of, the idea that he was a Roman Briton. So he had kind of that tie to history. I mean, I think that's probably where the historical connection ended as far as the movie goes. It just sort of did its own thing. But it was a thrilling movie. I liked that depiction of it. What about you, James? What was your favorite depiction that you've engaged in the King Arthur story from?
Ooh, that's hard to tell because there's been so many good ones. I think just to bring out the love interest, the Excalibur movie where Excalibur is stabbed in the earth between Lancelot and Guinevere really kind of amazed me for how poignant and interesting it was. So I'm going to go with Excalibur. Plus the armor was really shiny.
Yeah.
Ooh, shiny.
And your shiny knight has never had his metal tested.
They're not supposed to be shiny, but it is pretty on a film.
Yeah.
But it looked
All
great
right,
on film.
I haven't actually seen that one, so I just made myself a note that that's going to be something I'll have to find and
Yeah,
watch.
you'll have to. It's good.
I
It's
gotta
really
hold your
good.
feet to the
It's
fire
been a
on
long
that,
time, but yeah, I remember it being good.
We could always make that a retro movie review. I mean, it's
don't threaten me with a good time, bro.
yeah. We'll get James back to talk about it because he loves the movie so much.
There we go.
Although, when stuff that you grew up watching and they tell you it's not retro, then you just got to kill people. Because I was at a doctor's office the other day for my kid, and stuff I was remember coming out when I was in high school was on the Muzak channel. I'm like, nope, I'm not here for this. Turn it off.
In the elevator today, going back to my room, Motley Crue was playing in the elevator.
Oh, it hurts.
You guys, I'm older than Stone. I mean, come on. I'm the Beatles man and Petunia Clark with Downtown. That was the first song I ever heard in 7th grade.
Hey,
So did you
go
learn to
Beatles.
hate Yoko Ono?
No, she had her thing. It was good that they broke up. They had some better music afterwards.
Okay.
So my music tastes are all over the place, but I picked my 13-year-old up from school today, and the kids walking behind him said Metallica and NSYNC were old school.
Whoa.
Hey.
They don't even
Hey.
belong in the same sentence.
Ow.
Oh, it makes my heart hurt.
Yeah.
I was like, step in front of my truck. Please, just step in front of my truck.
Yeah, it was an accident, but you backed up and ran over them again.
Kids.
All right.
Because
What about you, Terry? What is your favorite depiction of the Arthur legend?
Ooh, favorite would probably still have to be Sword in the Stone, but another really good one from back in the day that we haven't brought up yet was the TV miniseries Merlin.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was well done.
That was really good.
That's pretty good, yeah.
Granted, it focused on Merlin, not King Arthur, but he was in there.
He was in
Throw Merlin a bone. He went through a lot.
Yes,
Yeah.
he did.
He really did.
Merlin was based off, you think, the Druids? Was that the kind of consensus when he was added?
Yeah,
For sure.
pretty-
Yes.
Definitely druidic.
Yep.
Yeah, it was druidic power, and then that became wizards and magic as that became a popular thing to talk about. So it all got layered on in
And in
there.
certain texts, he was the father of Guinevere to
Yep.
murder the Romans. So, like, he was a big dude. He was a big deal in, well, even from the beginning. Not only being the wizard, the great and powerful magician, the guy that could call the dragon, but in a historical text, he was like the religious and political leader of his tribe. So,
And with Merlin, the whole hermetic, esoteric, like witchcraft and rituals were taken from a lot of what he did from the druidic, and it was converted to more of the, as I said, the Crowley and the Gardnerian. A lot of the more New Age stuff was based heavily on a lot of the early Merlin. So in a way, it was not perverted, but changed to fit towards modern or whatever was popular at the time. I think even Agrippa mentioned it in his treatise on magic.
So that's actually the hard part with anything druid related. There's a lot of new age, neo druid, pagan LARPers out there. Yeah, come at me, bro. Because anybody that says they're actually practicing, we just don't know. The Romans were just too good at destroying every trace of them from the earth and because they were oral historians and they did things on like with wood and the fetishes and all the things they did. I know that word has different connotations now, Nick. Don't give me the side eye.
I didn't hear what you said, man. My bad.
Because of how they passed their lore down, it was just too easy to destroy. And so there's just not a lot left other than what they said of the Druids.
And what the Romans didn't destroy, the Holy Catholic Church got rid of the rest.
All right, now we fighting.
I mean,
Well, when your monks are the ones who do the writing and the reading and if you don't have a literate population, then you can change it any way you want. If you control the pen.
Yeah. Well, the Romans are notorious for that. I mean, they did what Ramses II and just kind of carried on with it. Oh, you invented this really cool thing. It'd be a shame if we took credit for it. It's Roman.
Yeah.
And that's how they rolled. And that's how Ramses II was. Like, he was notorious for going to all these holy places that they built, obelisks and things like that. And just like, it was not even medieval. It's just ancient tagging. Come up there with his little chisel and hammer, like Ramses II was here. Peace,
Any ruler that can make 99 kids is my kind of guy.
I'm just saying he didn't have a lot of hobbies. He just had the one.
He just had the one.
I was just gonna sit over here and keep my mouth shut. I ain't got nothing to say.
You don't want 99 kids?
I was raised Roman Catholic, so just
big families are the norm.
And I was raised.
I'm just sitting over here like.
We'd have like franchises all over the place if we were still fertile.
I'm just sitting over here like.
Let's transition from fertile bodies to fertile imaginations and ask: has anybody ever actually?
Wait! You didn't ask me my favorite one.
Yeah,
you said you were sitting over there quiet, and so I thought you didn't have one.
He was talking about Roman Catholics.
Oh, gotcha. I had this perfect transition too, and you just stomped all over. Like, no, JR, your transition stinks. All right, so what was your favorite?
Find out.
So, I do love all of the King Arthur movies. I love all the Excalibur movies, but I like when they take it and they kind of adapt it into a newer time frame. And I was just talking about this with Nick earlier. I really enjoyed The Sorcerer's Apprentice.
That was a really good movie.
Nick Nolte.
No, Nick Cage.
Oh, Nick Cage. Yeah, that was a wonderful movie. Oh my goodness.
Come to think of it, if you threw Nick Nolte in there, it probably would have been more entertaining.
It was pretty good without him.
The scene with the Tesla coils?
Yeah.
Yes. And they touch on all parts of it. So they touch on the King Arthur side, the Arthurian side. They touch on Morgana. They touch on Balthazar. They touch on Merlin. And you kind of get all of the things, but in this more modern version. And I was just having a good time with it. And then he started making his card change. And I was like, yeah, we're here for this.
I'm
was
pretty
very
sure
good.
Merlin was like Nikola Tesla was Merlin just in a later life.
Mhm.
I
I
mean,
believe
one
believe
of the
that.
biggest series right now in urban fantasy has Merlin, and that as the main thing. Dresden Files is heavily
Oh yeah,
influenced
Yeah.
great
by
show.
Arthurian.
Great show.
Well, you have Merlin and the Knights in one of the Transformer movies. We were just talking about this a
Yeah.
couple episodes
Oh, yeah.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah. The Last
the-
Night.
A shameless plug in the Lady of Death series by J.F. Posthumous. Merlin's in there too. Same
Nice.
Merlin, just several hundred years later.
Yeah.
Yeah. I need to get a skincare routine.
So now that we've talked about that, have anybody here, and I'll go last, but how many of you guys have worked Merlin or the King Arthur legends into your own writing? We're gonna let the
Not
guests go
yet.
first, Nick, because I know
Yeah,
the
but
answer.
I felt I need to throw my hand up.
Okay, you threw your hands up.
I haven't talked about that part of my comic book business yet.
All right, so we'll start with you then, Terry. Have you incorporated it into any of your own personal storytelling?
Not yet, though.
There's still
It'll
time.
probably get thrown in there somewhere. Probably.
Ooh.
Okay.
You need
okay.
to do this when you do that voice when you're
Somewhere.
Oh, yes.
Hmm.
Okay. What about you, Jana? Have you incorporated any of that?
She about to.
Oh yes, I'm going to be part of Nick's project, which I will not steal his thunder and let him do all the talking about that.
Tell me about
And
Percy. Tell me about Percy.
I know, and I have a whole thing to send to you later because it's really exciting. But no, I have a urban fantasy coming out probably next year that has some heavy play with bringing Arthur and the Knights into the modern world. So yes, it's really fun, and that will be good.
Okay.
Later, we'll talk about it later. It's coming.
All right. So we're going to come back to you, Nick, but Paul, because we're being polite to our guests, have you incorporated any King Arthur into your stories yet?
not yet, but thanks to Jana, I am currently working on a idea King Arthur zombie hunter because I didn't use proper punctuation in a reply to a comment, and she's like, "You should write that." I was like, "Son of a bitch." Okay. So I'm sort of playing around
Bunch of
that
authors
idea in my
together,
head.
engage each other ideas. Oh no.
So not yet, but it's going to if I can get this idea to come out. And it is going to be a modern day urban fantasy. I think I might have a little bit of the Kingsman aspects into it, maybe a little bit of GI Joe, stuff like that. King Arthur and his knights fighting against Morgana and her legions of undead, or something like that.
Okay. All right. So James, I know the answer for you, what it's going to be. So we're gonna let Nick, because he ties in with Jana, and then I'll come to you. So Nick, tell me about this King Arthur project.
Okay, so it was one of the earliest characters that I created. It's like when I was really into like the King Arthur legend. Like I was obsessed with it. It was it wasn't embarrassing. It was fucking awesome. But so I created this character. Originally, he was called the British Knight, and he was a distant relative of King Arthur. And I know for some of you historians, like, yeah, well, the lore says he had two sons, but they died in battle. Well, in this world, he didn't. They didn't. He had two sons. They lived and procreated and created the Pendragon franchise, And I also was into Highlander at the time.
There could be only
one.
Yeah. So the last descendant of Mordred decided he had learned that when he killed a Pendragon, that his power increased. Well, the Pendragon line went as far as the British Empire. So you had Indian Pendragons, which I drew some awesome character concepts. Loved it. And but in the Apogee universe, King Arthur was part alien.
okay.
He was part alien. He was like one drop of blood by the time it got to Arthur Pendragon. But it was enough to power the metal that was his father's armor. Because it was alien metal and it only reacted to people of that species. So Get to modern day, you have the new Pendragon. So the title of the book was called The Last Pendragon, and I don't know if I should spoil it, but there's a head fake in there where who you think is the main protagonist is not the main protagonist. He's in it for a while, and then he gets mortally wounded and has to go to Avalon to recharge. Well, because he's part alien, it could take forever, and he ain't going to age a day. He's just going to come back and not know the world he's in. So he passed his power on to a very rich, affluent party girl within the, British royal family, but so far down the line that she's never going to be queen or a princess or anything like that. So she's just spoiled little rich brat with a trust fund. And so so you got this power of great responsibility as like essentially the British Superman. And that power is put on to a party girl that's never known responsibility a day in her life. And I modeled her look, not the personality, well, some of the personality, but after Stabby. So okay. She has the haircut, she's got the piercings, the tattoos, because she's never this person who's not my wife, Stabby, has never known responsibility, unlike my actual Stabby, who's known a lot of responsibility her whole life. So I flipped that on her. It's too much. Well, if you I can find another muse if you want. I don't want to. I kind of like the one I got.
There's too much responsibility all the time.
My story with the Monsters Within was actually just called The Pendragon Brothers, and I don't know how to tell you a summary of it because it's a short story anyway without giving away too much. So instead, I will say that I dig the lore, and it was fun to read through some of that to create with. And then James has this brilliant idea. But before we talk about that one, James, have you used it previous to the Wizard Ascending series?
Oh, yeah, of course I have. In my first version of this, there were 7 sons of the grandson of King Arthur. And they kind of protect their little realm, and their little realm gets overrun by barbaric Huns.
Oh, nice.
And so they have to defend it, and each one has their own kind of like extra power, strength, intelligence, wisdom, that kind of thing. And it was about, I want to say it was about a 90,000 word short story, if you can believe that.
90,000. Wow.
All right, Brandon Sanderson.
Take that.
I mean, I get that. I've never met a short story I couldn't turn into a series, so there's just more ideas than there is time.
Yeah,
I know, JR. I have to buy them and read them.
So, other than that story, the short story in air quotes, were there any other times you incorporated the lore?
Well, yeah. I mean, I do roundtable stuff all the time because it's fun to do in role playing.
Right.
Lancelot is missing. What are we going to do about that, guys? It's just kind of that's really perfect step-ins because everybody knows about King Arthur and the Round Table. It's perfect step-ins in the beginning of role-playing adventures.
Do you ever invert that and turn King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table into the bad guys, or tell it from the other perspective?
Never. My heart would break if I did that.
Okay, so you're a little bit of a purist when it comes to the story.
It's bad enough that Lancelot fought his son to steal Guinevere from the fire pile.
Just a moment. There's just we get a moment of silence for poor Lancelot, and then now we'll continue. So tell me about the Wizard Ascending series that you're writing. I've happened to have read the first draft, and it's pretty kick-ass.
Funny that we're writing, young man.
He sent me the first 40 pages, and he goes, "What do you think?" And I'm like, "Oh shit! I was supposed to be taking notes because I was already sucked in."
JR, you got young manned. I just want to point this out because it's hysterical.
I know, it feels good.
Completely served. It's great.
I've got nose hairs older than JR.
So before we talk about this, we're going to kick out of this. So I was watching something on the History Channel, and they had something about World War I, and my son just looks at me and he goes, "Daddy, did you know that guy?" And I'm like, "That was 100 years before I was in the Army, kid. Exactly how old do you think I am?"
Yeah, really.
Caden did that to me the other day. I was watching Frankenstein, and he goes, "Mom, when you were growing up, was there color in the world?"
Ouch.
Ugh.
There we go.
The TV was not in color back then. Like we were in color.
Okay. So now that I feel not quite as old, I needed that, James. Thank you. So you came up with the idea though. So how did you decide to incorporate this into a story in the way that you did?
Okay, so I'll try to keep this very short, but it won't be. So here we go. A young man in college gets pulled into another world and gets given a magical tower, and he must become a wizard. He's not given a choice. And so he's in the town of Crimson Hawk. That's my trademark campaign world. And in Crimson Hawk, at the top of the hill, is Camelot with King Arthur and all the Knights of the Round Table and Guinevere. Okay, so the story goes on, and he deals with King Arthur every once in a while. And finally, he meets Lancelot. Lancelot isn't a Knight of the Round Table yet, but he says to himself, oh no, Lancelot is going to meet Guinevere, and Table Round is going to be destroyed. We can't have that happening. So my main character and all his allies decide to keep Lancelot away from Guinevere at all costs. And so there's a bunch of different scenarios where they could meet, but they make sure they don't meet. And Lancelot just doesn't get it. Why can't I see Guinevere? And he refuses to tell him. He told the story to his other friends. Well, they fell in love and it couldn't be helped, and the Round Table was destroyed. So they all are in with him on keeping it away. And so now that was book 1. In book 2 now, we delve into more of Guinevere accidentally maybe meeting Lancelot, and bad things will happen, but we're going to try to avoid that if we can.
And with James, that means bad things will happen because he's just not so nice to his characters. Yeah. Have you seen Wreck-It Ralph, Nick?
Oh yeah.
Where they have the therapy the therapy group for all the villains. Like, there's actually a group like that exists for all the poor characters that James has tortured over the years.
Just because
you're bad guy doesn't mean you're bad guy.
Thank you. I was trying to remember how that quote started.
Thanks, Satan.
There's actually, you'll get a kick out of this sometime later in season 3. It's on the schedule. We haven't got it out yet. We are going to do a panel topic on the origin of a villain that was inspired by that scene in Wreck-It Ralph.
And you know what? Sometime maybe next summer, if you'd like, I'd be happy to run a game here on the podcast.
Ooh, that'd be fun. How many dice do you need?
All of them. You need all of
James
the
has
dice.
made like hundreds of systems.
Good, because I own all of them.
So, are there actually any Merlin and King Arthur inspired dice? Now we have to look for research purposes.
I don't think
Give
I've
Stabby 20 minutes. She'll find it.
Yeah,
she is a resident internet sleuth.
Probably.
I mean, what would Arthurian dice look like? I mean, he does have the 3 lions rampart. I suppose you could make that as a 20 side.
Designs, maybe some gold.
Or maybe like just the theme of the it's like acrylic plastic with the little sword in a stone inside the middle of the dice.
The sword in the middle. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Talking about the sword and stone, the Excalibur Casino, which is the one I always go to when I go to Las Vegas, has a beautiful sword in the stone, and I've never been able to pull it out. It must mean I'm not worthy.
I took a hammer to it. I got arrested.
So, fun fact, my grandmother actually worked at the Excalibur for 20 years. That's actually where I was also introduced to Batman, actually, Michael Keaton as Batman, and I got to take a picture with this car. But that's a story for a different day. But nobody can pull that sword from that stone.
Nobody ever?
Nobody.
They're making it seem like you can and you can't? I'm going to have to sue those guys.
Nobody has that.
For the record, Florida has their own version of the sword in the stone.
Whoever pulls that machete out of his head becomes king of Florida.
Yeah, there's for those of you listening and not watching, there's an alligator that roams Florida with a machete buried into its skull. Actually, it's probably a steak knife, but
Yeah,
if you can pull it out, you could be the king of Florida.
wrong.
Wow.
Saber in the gator.
Yeah.
You know what's missing from that picture? There should be a raccoon riding on top of his head trying to pull the dagger out.
That'd be awesome.
That would be the most Florida thing that I have ever floated.
Well, no, see, that's perfect because the alligator's in the water, it's also the Florida
Lady in the
version of the
lake.
Lady in the Lake.
Lady of the Lake.
Oh,
So you've got both
done.
things going on there.
Oh, man.
Sweet.
James, would you see King Arthur in comedic, or is that sacrilegious for you?
That's sacrilegious for me. I'm sorry. He's the noble honor archetype, and he's not funny. He sings really well, but he's not funny.
He can sing real well, but he can't be funny. Okay.
Right.
So, since you write some of the romance stuff as is Jenna and some of your other pen names, have you ever seen where? I mean, I've seen King Arthur in a lot of stories, but has he ever been like the love story told in a modern, like, sort of paranormal setting? Has that been done yet?
Oh, all the time. You see, I mean, even comics, there was Camelot 3000.
Yeah, Camelot 3000.
Which kicks you forward, and they hit the love story there. There's several of them that have reborn King Arthurs, because that's part of the legend. One of the biggest hinge points on the legend is that he'll return, that he was laid to rest somewhere under a hill in Britain. Some people argue Cornwall, some people argue Wales, but that when the world needs him, when the empire needs him, when Britain needs him, he'll come back someday. And so there's this whole resurrection thing going on there. And so you see that in a lot of modern stuff where people pull it up and say, yeah, here's the what was the name of it? There's one where he's in New York. I mean, most of the major cities, for whatever reason, we grab him and we transport him over here from the Isle. Sorry about that, Britain. But we keep stealing him because he's such a great character, and he does show up very often in romance.
We didn't steal it, we conquered it.
Exactly.
Oh, listen to that song.
But yes, you do see it in romance a lot, and I've seen Lancelot and I've seen Guinevere again. So there's some of them where they're reborn, or it's spirits that take over those bodies, and I've even seen it gender bent, which I'm sure that James would probably not.
No, Camelot 3000 did a lot of that. King Arthur was female.
They did. He was
in
female.
that comic. Yeah.
He, she. So yeah. So I've seen a lot of it because it is such kind of a classic romance story about, the love triangle. Where does that lead? What happens when you've got somebody breaking the dude code? You can't fall in love with your king's wife. That's terrible.
Is
and yeah, we see it a lot.
in those?
Not as much as he should be.
Because he was
Percival
like the
should get a-
noblest of the round table. That's why he got sent to go find the Holy Grail.
To go find the Holy Grail. Yeah, so you see him
He was the
occasionally.
cutest-
I don't think he gets enough screen time. I think people
I
get
agree with you. Huge
Yeah.
Percy fan.
and then he gets confused with Galahad, and they have all the arguments over, whether Percy and Galahad both found the Grail together, or whether it was only one or the other, or whether they were actually the same person with two different names.
Yeah.
Because according to the stories, Galahad found it and took a drink, died immediately, and was taken to heaven. Was given the
Yeah.
rapture. So, but yeah, Percival was so pure that he went off and he found the Grail, and then we don't know what happened to him, because after he finds the Grail, it's all mystery as to what happens next. Which I think that's a really good place right there to yoink him forward and use him as a lead in an urban fantasy or in something more modern, because it's so he touched the Grail, and then what happened?
So
Yeah, where that story ended.
Is everyone in the legend come forward, or just King Arthur? Or, I mean, I knew King Arthur would come back, that resurrection, but I don't know if it applied to the other people in his round table, and I don't know if it applied to, like, Guinevere.
Not that I knew of. I think it was just King Arthur.
He was the only one foretold, but a lot of people, it's easy to pull the others too, because you have immediate character recognition. And people
Right.
have read the legends and they see, well, it's like you were just saying, James was saying, excuse me, trying to keep them from meeting Guinevere because bad things are going to happen there. Well, your audience knows that code, even though it's in your own story world, because they already know the story. So anytime that you see, we're going to bring King Arthur forward, and now we're going to call him Artie Smith, and he meets somebody named Gwen, everybody who knows the ancient story goes, no, this is going to be bad. Because it's already imprinted on that first folklore.
Yeah,
So-
they can use that. that to head fake the audience.
Exactly, and that's where it gets really fun. Is where you go, or not. We'll mess with that.
Yeah, Meg Cabot did a version of that. She wrote Avalon
Right.
High,
Mhm.
which was pretty good, and that had that same trope of okay, you have these three big names that always show up, but we've never had this one show up before, and that's what makes all the difference.
I
Yeah.
know she's probably got a lot of negative, which she should, but one of the earliest things that really introduced a lot of people to King Arthur was Marion Zimmer Bradley's Mists of Avalon.
Avalon.
I mean,
That was a good book.
I think I've read that years ago, but it's been a while.
It's a
has
good
been
book.
around
It's
for a
solid.
while.
Its art
Yeah.
is definitely on the cover. Is definitely a product of the time.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I love it when authors disrupt the apple cart like that.
Yeah.
You know, it just because you think you're going into a story that you know that you can kind of like, oh, I know where this is going, and I'm like, oh crap, I didn't see that coming at all. I like
Yeah,
this
it's
book.
kind of a duty of the author, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe it is to take a common story and lead it to a point where you think the reader, the audience is like, okay, I kind of know where this is going, yawn, and then you use that term again, disrupt the apple cart. And then everyone's like, "What? Oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever!" Because I've had that reaction in movies and books, and I'm like, "What did you do?" You know.
I remember reading a Marvel comic based on Arthur. They actually had a full run on Earth 616 with Arthur, the Black Knight, Guinevere, Lancelot, and so on. I mean, I think it was pretty popular.
I think it was an Excalibur book.
I believe so.
Yeah, with the X-Men.
Yeah,
So-
2019 to 2021.
Yeah.
For those of you that are actually watching, if you look at the screen, you will see the original cover for The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley. I haven't read it in a long. That might have to go on my older books to reread. But that is
I gotta buy that. I lost my copy over
Is that a Newbery Award I'm seeing on that book cover?
Newbery.
It can't be Newbery.
It can't be?
No. With some of the
New York
content,
Times
New
bestseller.
York Times. Yeah, give
It's
it
3
some of the
months.
content that wouldn't qualify for Newbery.
The only thing left on my bucket list is a Newbery Award. I gotta win one before I croak.
Okay.
That's a good
We'll
bucket
see what
list.
we can do.
Yeah, right.
So I know, Paul, you're getting ready to bounce. Your contacts will be in the show notes. We appreciate you coming on and hawking your wares. We tend to run long on these, and that is okay. But
5
that means
a.m. comes really early.
It does. So first, let me tell you, for those that were wondering, Stabby did find King Arthur dice. So they do
Really?
exist. She did. Okay, let me see if I can get them on the screen. Nick, talk while I get these onto the screen so we can show them.
All right, so King
They
Arthur,
say
Percival, and Mordred walk into a bar.
Oh no.
Uh-oh.
They
Hey,
say
where's
that
the
I'm better
neighborhood?
than
Wish I
the
had a joke for
FBI, so you tell me to find something, I'll find it.
Yep, that's true.
Just
Stabby
goes to
really
show
did
how
that.
much I like King Arthur. I named one of my cats Mordred. He's a black cat.
Nice.
Love it.
That doesn't show how much you like King Arthur. That shows how much you like the evil son.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing good about Mordred I've ever read.
No, not at all.
The dark side has cookies.
That's
yeah.
Exactly.
To be
I'm sorry,
fair,
but
Mordred's song from Camelot was the first one I memorized on that whole album.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Seven Deadly Sins.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Catchy.
I think if I
I've never heard it,
had
but
a
I'll take
name
your
in
word for it.
Leeds.
All right, they are small pictures, but Pure Night King Arthur
Oh,
dice.
There you go.
That well done. Good find.
Oh, she found more. These are
That's
the Merlin
Merlin.
dice. It's got something on the inside you can barely see in this picture. The marketing team of whatever company made these really needs to do a better job with their graphics.
They're
Yeah,
doing
that's the
amazing
light
things with
issue.
dice these days.
There's metal dice with the Pendragon theme. I don't know if you can see it on the top middle. There's that little Pendragon on the metal
Yeah, the
dice.
little dragon.
Yeah, you roll that on a wooden table and your wife divorces you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's why
And
they
then-
have dice mats now, is so
Yeah,
that you
there
can
we
roll
go.
Yeah,
on the
dice
dice mat.
This one, the metal dice have all kinds of sword and stone and Pendragon motifs as well.
Nice.
Then these ones, I'm not sure what these are on the
That's
inside.
Merlin to me.
But
I
they're
think they light up.
Okay.
Those were the Merlin resin ones.
Ooh.
And
All
those
right.
are those crystal dice. Those are the caltrops that if you step on those things, they're
Yeah.
just like Legos. They'll go right through your foot.
And then
Oh, I
this is
think they're
for-
worse than Legos. So many sharp points.
Oh yeah.
Especially those D4s. That'll just.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
So
the
I
end of that.
actually found those all on Etsy.
Okay.
Well done. Well done.
Good job.
Take that, FBI.
that.
So we've talked about how we've used them in the story. Does anybody have plans in the future? Paul's already answered this one about actually doing more with the King Arthur legend.
I'm working with Jenna right now, and
Yep,
we're going to
I'm-
get the Last Pendragon going.
I got a sneak peek because she accidentally sent me what she meant to send you because she got so excited.
I screwed up. It was
Hey,
funny.
Mom,
I'm like-
old.
I'm like, who is this guy and why are you telling me about him? And she's like, oops. And now, of course, once she said it was an accidental send, then, of course, you want to know more because you're not supposed to know more. That's how that was.
You know, JR, Nick, they sound the same. I get it.
Yes,
What about
well,
One
Jay?
of those guys. One of those podcast guys.
One
Well,
of those
maybe
handsome
having
Asian dudes.
in our discussions here, I have an anthology that I need to start, so I'm in the initial jot down some ideas, let it stew in the brain cauldron for a while. The premise is a fairy war. So what if that fairy war is going on because, Morgan and Arthur are going at it? And this is just the fallout of that.
You figured the Fae would have more of an appearance in the Arthurian legend.
I'll
You'd
make
think.
JR give me
Oh,
a
yeah.
free copy.
What's that,
Not if the
James?
Romans.
I said I'll make JR give me a free copy of that book.
nice.
I'll acquire one for you. I can tactically
Yeah,
acquire.
he'll give you the free one, and then he'll charge me for it.
Oh, there we go. That's fair.
And he shouts something about capitalism or something.
All right. What about you, Jana? You got any in the future besides the comic you're working on?
Well, now that we talked about, what happens to Percival after the Grail, I think I have a new series in mind.
Oh,
Because I
okay.
like the idea of bringing him forward and doing an urban fantasy around what happens after that point.
That
He's
would be a great.
Definitely on it.
That would be really awesome. So, because like Nick says, Percival is one of my very favorites. He goes through a lot. He loses a lot, and he shows up in a whole bunch of different versions. So there's lots of great background to pick and choose from.
Yeah.
Because in some places he's younger than a lot of the other knights, and so in some places Lancelot is his mentor. In other places he's somebody important's son, and then he's just a nobody that's then moves through the ranks, and so he's got a lot of interesting background going on. So I think I may have to bring him in and take him urban fantasy, see what he can do with magic now. That'll be fun.
Have you created King Arthur games, or was it just incorporating them into like one-offs in the D&D world? James?
It was just one-off adventures. The Chaosium did Pendragon, and it was just a wonderful set of rules.
Mm.
Have you written any set of rules with that in mind, or any themes in your existing worlds?
Everything
Memes.
I do is AD&D 1E. That's the one I memorized, so that's the one I model my game after. It's just I know what to write so I don't get sued into the Stone Age by Wizards of the Coast.
Ugh, those guys.
Yeah. Unlike them, you still put your books in print, so yay you.
Yeah, that's the truth.
So
Keep that.
with the series, the Wizard Ascending series that you are working on, that is very King Arthur, that into an actual sort of King Arthur inspired RPG setting.
Well, it won't be a King Arthur inspired setting, but you and I are going to do a fantasy role playing setting in the beginning of every chapter of this book that JR and I are writing. I put a character or a monster stats. And so we're going to use all of those stats. We got 26 chapters. So we're going to use 26 chapters. My monsters and characters are already written for me, so I won't have to do any of that heavy lifting.
Okay,
That would be fun.
that does sound fun. And
Copy.
there you go. You get a free copy.
What's the sense of having friends if you don't use them?
Absolutely.
No,
That's
and
why we're here.
we could beta test it for you, for science.
Yeah,
Science.
there we go.
All right,
It's
so
advertising.
Yeah.
and it's just fun. And you haven't lived until you can say James M. Ward killed you in a game. Like that's
Yeah.
I have a terrible reputation of killing characters, and like I say, I don't kill characters. Players kill characters.
Okay.
And he says that, but when he plays his own characters, when he's not the dungeon master, he is the most like Leroy Jenkins player you'll ever meet. He is chaos.
Leroy.
I am chaotic neutral. That's very true. We've established that over the years.
So yeah, who knows? The cool thing is have you died a lot in your games? I know Sparky's very proud of the fact that he killed you in a game.
I know. I hardly ever die in games. Hardly ever.
Okay. All right. So if you, dear listener, because we're reaching the hour, and I promised James I'd let him actually get some sleep tonight, and I wouldn't keep him up all night. So, dear listener, if you've got a favorite King Arthur sort of addition to the lore, movie, game, book, whatever, be sure to put it in the comment section. If you've got more on this topic you want us to cover, shoot that as well. All of these original like season 3 topics we're doing are essentially scratching the surface, and there's definitely more on any one of these where we could drill in deeper. But the question is drilling where you want us to go. So you kind of have to reach out and tell us, hey, this is the part that's interesting. Let's see if we can make that happen. Okay. So people have done Pendragon pinup art. Okay.
I've done.
Okay, it's close.
All right. I've got to get that onto the show real quick. But while I'm doing that, we're going to start with you, Terry. What are you working on at the moment?
At the moment, I've been doing some more world building in this new series I'm hoping to write eventually. So hopefully that's going to come to fruition in the future.
Ooh.
I know.
All right, you guys are getting a little too comfortable with that evil thing going on.
What do you mean?
Who said I'm not the evil twin?
You don't have the goatee.
I got to shake.
You think
All right.
Nick's the evil one? That's funny.
So this is one of Nick's Pendragon art
Pinups.
pinups. I'm not sure what you call it.
Oh, I'm
know.
digging the mace though. That's awesome.
Yeah, I figured she would have that instead of.
Oh, look at that.
Oh gosh, yes.
Nice.
Mace and shield is a great combination.
And I had that
I
made
don't
into a
know.
figure.
I don't know. That chick looks familiar to me.
I'm seeing a feminine
Never
theme
seen her
here.
before. Never seen her before.
Oh, now that we've got that out of the way, it's good art though, Nick. Well done. It's almost like you do this for a living or something. What about you? Sort of. What do you when you're not, wrestling ET out of the sky and stealing his spaceships? You did promise me a ride though, and you didn't deliver yet. So
I got the paperwork in. I'm just waiting on approval from higher.
there we go.
If JR gets a ride first, I am going to be so mad.
Baby, I got you a Tron cycle.
Right
He
there
gets
for
to ride along on a ship. You get to drive a ship.
We will fight.
All right, so that's true love right there, James. So Jana, what are you working on at the moment?
Well, now I have a whole bunch of new ideas to work on, which I'm going to put in the not right now folder. So I'm doing some write-ups for Nick for where he's going with his stories, and I am finishing
Where we're going.
I'm finishing the third in a trilogy called The War of the Lich. The whole necromantic magic kind of fun stuff. I've got to get that one out because my mother threatened to disown me if I don't get it finished, and she means now. So that is now taken priority over other things because when your mother says write the book, then you say yes, Mom.
Yeah,
So
really.
she brought you into the world. She can take you out. Write the book.
I've heard that before from my mother.
Yep. So I'm going to finish writing the book for her, and then I'll move to the next thing.
My mom used that threat on me until I replied one day. I'm like, listen, Mom, I came to this world kicking and screaming in someone else's blood. I'll go out the same way.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure I said that to Kaden the other night. I was like, I brought you into this world covered in my blood. I'll take you out the same way.
So James, you've mentioned obviously you're writing the Wizard Ascending, which is the King Arthur inspired story, and the Wargate one that you and I are doing with the Egyptian theme. Are you working on anything else at the moment? I know you've got a game in the works, right?
I do have a new way to role play that I'm very proud of. I did a fantasy version of it, and I'm going to actually show it at a little convention next Sunday. And I'm also writing a couple more short stories because you said I need to do 2 short story books. So I'm trying to fill up the second one.
Okay. He had enough that it was made no sense to throw it in one when he could split it in 2. He didn't have to compete with Brandon Sanderson on page length.
Yeah. So I have 50,000 words on the second one, but you told me I have to be up to 100.
Yep. So you're working on more short stories. You got talent with. We actually ran into a problem. My mom was doing the editing, and then she forgot she was supposed to edit because she kept getting sucked in. There was a specific story about a dwarf I heard about at least a dozen times because she must have read it over and over again because she liked it so much.
Isn't that an amazing compliment? Oh my goodness!
When the editor forgets to edit, that is a good thing.
Yeah, it fed my ego. I have to tell you.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. You know, everybody needs a pat on the back every now and then. And since what I'm working on, I'm also working on with James. I will, Nick, what are you writing? I know you just finished Bengali 3.
Bengali 3, yeah, that's done. I'm working on Corvid and Sparrow. That's our female dynamic duo about an ancient society of watchers. Guess what they do? They're a little bit more, so they are the guardians of all collected human history and knowledge. So everything from nuclear weapons to gods living underneath the earth waiting to return to aliens among us. So I'm excited about that. I'm not writing it. I'm drawing it. The next thing I'm writing, I'm collaborating with Jenna, and I just now enticed Terry here to join the set of comic books.
All right. So I've heard the way you make a little bit of money in comic books is to start off with a lot of bit of money. It's a hard business.
Oh yeah, I was Forbes Fortune 500. You know, top 30 at 30, and then I started doing comic books, and I have to pole dance on the weekends to make ends meet.
Wow.
So have we convinced you to try your hand at writing yet, Stabby?
Dude, that would not make any sense. The best thing you can do is write something and have me edit it, because I can read a story and be like, hey, this does not make sense. But you want me to write a story? You're asking for trouble. Most of those words won't make sense. I will be constantly texting you going, hey, how do I spell this again?
Yeah,
And
there we
then
go.
the last question will be, okay, so I'm thinking of this specific thing. It's kind of like this and kind of like this when you put them together. How do you say that word? And you'll be like, pasta? Okay.
She gives you the ingredients, and I tell you the name of it.
So I'm
not.
picturing like Stabby doing that to Nick while he's at work, and then that made me think of the scene that happened in Florida. Ironically, this guy gets pulled over, and he was on a motorcycle, and he's talking to his girlfriend through however the helmets connect, and she didn't believe he was getting pulled over because he was just late, so he had to be with some other girl, and so finally he hands the cop the phone and says, "Please tell her you're pulling me over." And she just started yelling at the cop about how he wasn't real and this was just a cover. And he just handed the guy back his phone and he goes, "Drive slow. I'm not even giving you a ticket. Your night's going to suck already."
Great story.
And the cop released the dash cam because it was just so hilarious.
I'm dyslexic. Having me write anything is not the way to go. I can read anything and I'll tell you like where something needs to be fixed because I need it to make sense. Make it make sense.
That's what an editor is going to hate her.
Yeah. Like
it's like it makes sense sort of once I put the pieces together in the puzzle, and it's amazing.
I've read a couple of Nick and a couple of his writers' stuff. They're like, hey, read this. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how to say that planet name. That's confusing me. There's too many X's in it. I don't know how to say these people names.
He's very important.
There's too many Y's in it. And where did these 5 guys come from? Because they're having a conversation in the van, but all of a sudden 5 guys jump out of the back of the van and he didn't hear those 5 guys in the van? Like, where did these guys come from?
Oh, she's talking about the Speedster book.
Yes.
Not that you feel called out or anything.
No,
All
a
right.
little bit. It feels a little personal.
So this is the part,
We can-
dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book. So do your part. It's a collaborative process. And with that being said, Stabby, you got one more thing to add? Nick, gird your loins. This might get painful.
Coffee brand coffee.
Oh, that is right. That is right. So our other sponsor today, we're not going to show the video because we're running late at an hour and a half. Our sponsor is Coffee Brand Coffee. So they have picked us up as an affiliate. If you like coffee and you like us and you want to support us by drinking coffee, click the link. And or when you order, the code is podcast grunts because we're creative like that. They also have tea, hot chocolates, snacks, seasonal snacks. They have tumblers. Nick would show you his, but he left it at home. And so they have all the cool things. And you help the show when you get your glorious coffee. And hold on, let me pull this this image up that I accidentally showed earlier. But they have a new flavor of coffee coming out. They're having strawberries and cream. And since Stabby liked the blueberry so much.
Oh, the blueberry cobbler.
Wow, look at that.
Oh.
This looks like diabetes in a cup right here.
Yeah.
But don't use Strawberry Friends. That's the generic Coffee Brand Coffee. Use Podcast Grunts. I really ought to figure out how to digitally edit their graphics so we can make it apply to us. But yeah, so you help support the show. You help keep the lights on. Help hopefully get Stabby a better microphone so she's not constantly echoing when Nick talks at the same time. So,
Wow.
Bill?
Well, that's why you guys got to mute. But see, if they buy the coffee, they can help get you a better setup, so it's not a problem.
Yeah, give us money so we can better shit, I guess.
Stop asking questions. I don't sound as smart when you want to know details I don't know. All right?
Yeah, my mic is the problem.
Details here. We've talked about this.
All right. I kid. The real reason is they're just so close that it echoes. But with that being said, Terry, how can listeners and viewers find you on the wild, wild interwebs? Don't break it.
I definitely will if you keep talking.
Hey, quick, if we keep talking, she'll break it. I'm most commonly found on Facebook, named Terry K. Job. I'm not there super long time, but, I pop in every now and again. You can find me there. I exist.
Oh, freaking standing. All right. What about you, Jenna? How can they find you on the wild, wild interwebs? As usual, links will be in the show notes.
Yep. You can go to www.opalkingdompress.com. You can find me and all of the other versions of me in that same location. Or Janet S. Brown writes anywhere on the internet. That's all me. If it's on Goodreads, if it's on Facebook, if it's on Twitter, if it's any place that is, that's me.
Oh, freaking standing. All right. And last but not least, we got you, Mr. James M. Ward, legendary game designer and author extraordinaire.
Okay, so I'm only on Facebook, but here's the deal. I already have 5,000 people, and I had to say no more because trolls kept coming on my page and saying awful things about my product that they hadn't even read. So I had to limit who could talk to me. So I guess you can't get a hold of me.
Well, he has a author page on Amazon as well. If he doesn't, if he doesn't, we will fix that in the near future because he certainly has enough products out there. And when our new series launch, we are working on a website where you could find him as well. So we're going to bring James kicking and screaming into the digital age. He will skip the 20th century and jump right to the 21st.
There we go. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I got the years right. We're good. All right. And you can find us on all the things. We have our link tree, which is linktr.ee. Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the BitChute, the Rumbles, the Twitters. We have an email address at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com and a Facebook group, which is also linked to the Linktree. So I won't shout all that gobbledygook, but here's a pro tip. It's Blasters and Blades Podcast because we're easy like that.
Super easy. Wait.
We're grunts, right? We do it the gruntastic way. Simple, straight to the point.
Simple.
I go around an object when you could blow a hole straight through the middle.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what she said.
several days later, all right, we have our website at anchor.fm/blasters tack and tack blades. Again, anchor.fm/blasters tack and tack blades, where for as little as 99 cents a month, you can help keep the lights on. As we've said before, these shows aren't free to produce, and your effort to keep us on air is greatly appreciated. We will be getting a proper website soon. Nick has bought the domain name. Now he just needs a day off of work where he can sleep, and then he'll make a website.
What are those?
Sleep? I don't know. Or you could support the show more directly at buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that it's for the podcast, and I would keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink until the Java pours out of their ears. Don't drink it when it comes out that way. It's like that. Just make another cup. Promise. You'll thank me later. And with that being said, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my insane co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. All right. I appreciate all of you guys for coming on and all of you guys for watching. It's been a great show. Thank you, James. Thank you, Jana. Thank you, Terry.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Peace out, y'all.
And we're out.